So, hello and welcome everyone to Sales and Senses, a podcast where we talk about the business of finer things that appeal to your senses and mine. Fragrance is one of the oldest commercial industries in the world, and yet most people have absolutely no idea how it actually works. Who decides what goes into the bottle? Who holds the real power? Why a fragrance smells different today than it did 10 years ago? So, today we have a very special guest who spent over 50 years in the industry, from the trading floors of London to the boardrooms of Singapore, from IFF to building his own consultancy in the mountains of Colombia. He has sold scent across cultures, that experience scent in a very different way, advised brands on strategy and acquisitions, and watched the industry transform from department stores to TikTok shop. So, hi Simon, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, that's a great introduction.
So maybe Simon, before we actually get to any specific question, I'd love to hear how your love for fragrances actually started. What was that like? For me, it was about at the age of 16. So what was the first moment where you thought, okay, this is something that I actually love?
Yeah, I mean, it was either people get into this industry with through their families, and my father was a perfumer, or mother was a perfumer, so I became a. Not at all. I in England, yes, rather a long time ago. Um, I was looking for a job for Christmas to try and get some money, and I was hadn't really made up my mind what I wanted to do, go to university, study journalism, which I really wanted to do, or play professional golf. Um, and I needed money for Christmas, and a friend of mine said, "Look, my father is works at that smelly place." So I said, "Yeah, I think I know that one. Well, go and knock on the door, ask for this guy. If you want a job for Christmas, there's a job there." I said, "Okay."
Mm.
So off I trotted, and yeah, in no time at all, I was wearing a white coat, packing up some stuff, and then dragged into. They were a compounder short. I remember I
Yeah.
was dragged in and said, "Right, put this can on this heat pad. Don't let it spill, and make sure it." And I thought, what is going on? And it was. I can't remember what it was, maybe gum arabic. And we ended up, it was part of the perfume for a very famous English shampoo brand called Vosin, which the company was making under license. And I just was absolutely astonished. And at this business, and I gradually got into it. I was doing some compounding, I was doing some distillation work, and the company was very famous for its very small company called Zimmerman Hobbs in
Mhm.
England, long gone, sadly. Great little company, lovely people, and they were quite well known for their peppermint and their mint distillation.
Mhm.
And I just got into it, and I gradually started to do different things, and I was absolutely fascinated. And it was wonderful. And I worked in the labs, not very well. I worked in the labs, and had to go back to school, and absolutely loved it. It was just one of these things. You just think, wow, this is a whole new a world I never knew about, but I really liked. I really loved the people. The people were fantastic. A lot of whom I still have great contact with. And my boss my first real boss said, "Look, you want to travel. You really you want to get into selling perfume. Come and work in the export department." And that's how it all really started. And I was there 11 and a half years, and it was wonderful. Absolutely loved it.
So when you said, "Wow, this is a completely different world," what was the most surprising thing for you working in the on the lab and creation side?
It was finding out what these ingredients were. I mean, you just talk sort of, especially I was still a teenager, and you had no idea what went into products. You just took them for granted, and Oh, I like this, I like that. And then you started to gradually find out where these materials came from. I was exposed to oud for the first time, which I absolutely still my favorite material. Um, you just wow, it's just this wow moment, and the wow moment lasted for a very long time. And I was involved in flavors as well. I spent a long time in Ireland and then Turkey. Spent a lot of time in Turkey and the Middle East, and it grows and it really grabs you. It really, it just takes you, and you just fall in love with the whole thing and the people. Fell in love with the people.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to mention oud so early on in the discussion because that's something that I really wanted to talk about. But since you mentioned it, I wanted to get your perspective on, right now, if you step out and actually go into a store, almost everything expensive has to have the word oud in it. But how
Yeah.
have you seen that transition happen? Because I remember when I was little, oud was very much associated as something very dark, like an acquired taste. But now suddenly everything is supposed to have oud.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's kind of lost its, the mysteriousness of it. Um, I live in Colombia. We've lived here for about 15 months, 16 months. My wife's Colombian. I was astonished the first time I went into a mall in a town which was about 3 hours outside of Bogota. There's a store, they have all Middle Eastern fragrances, and there is oud. And I asked the store owners, "Well, do people really understand what oud is?" And they didn't really understand what oud was. People love this note. They absolutely love it. I said, "Do you know the history of it? Do you know and they said, "No, but it's unusual. It's different. And this is what people love here. It's different." And it's sort of, wow, it's astonishing. I mean, I first came into contact with it, I think, obviously in the Middle East and in UAE or even in Syria and traveling around. And the first you become connected to the story. You become connected to, um, the culture and the traditions behind it and everything. And I don't know, it just sort of grabbed me. And then through everything, especially after I left IFF and started off on my own, I worked with Fragrance de Bois, who are a wonderful niche fragrance company who have their own agar wood plantations in Asia. And there's two sides to their company. It was great because I sort of knew what was going on. I knew it. And then later I went to visit plantations in Cambodia. I had great friends in India who I went to see who had agarwood trees growing in their backyard. Stayed with me from very early days in the industry, and I seem to be connected to it in one way or another, and always have been. And then when I left IFF and I did some work with, we launched the early Fragrance de Bois fragrances,
Right.
and they had their own plantations. And then latterly after that, I visited plantations in Cambodia. I had a great friend, sadly departed, in India, who had these most enormous agarwood trees just more or less growing in his back garden. Uh, and so I've just been connected with it, and I still love it. I absolutely love it.
And would you say that you have maybe seen this transition happening more from the brand side where the briefs are changing a little more, saying we need oud in this fragrance or that, or is it more from consumers experiencing something new and wanting it more and more in every single thing that they try?
I think it's the brands. I think it's been the brands. I think a lot of the European brands, in the 2012, this sort of time, really wanting new a new note, and the big guys, Dior, and they started to use oud, and European consumers really didn't know what that was or had not come into contact it so much. And there was this new innovative this note, and everybody connected with it. I think it's a wee bit overdone now. Although I saw a report recently, it says it's still the number 2 sort of leading note in the world after gourmand. I think it's still loved. I don't know if people really understand what it really is and all its heritage that surrounds it. Maybe a lot more than they used to. A lot more.
Since you already mentioned gourmand, of course, it's an accord more than just a note. But what is the sudden rise of gourmand represent for you? Because this is one of the most sudden changes that we have seen. That suddenly in the past 3 years, every fragrance has to be related to some sort of dessert. And what does that really say about the consumer's mindset?
Um, I hope it ends soon, to be honest. I hate it. I don't like it at all. Um, I think a lot of the time people are trying to find a different word for vanilla.
Yeah,
I
of course.
it's I think it's overdone. But I have to accept that this is the thing now, that every aspect of gourmand, I mean, we're seeing milk fragrances. Every aspect of gourmand now is in every leading fragrance. I don't know. It's a personal thing. I don't like overly sweet type fragrances. I love
Yeah.
fruity fragrances. I mean, you can combine strawberries and raspberries and have a lovely fruit salad and go back to the calyx. I think that was Estee Lauder. D- I do like those, but no, I really hope it's a trend that ends soon. I really do. I was I was talking to somebody and he said, "There's 2 things I want you to do for me. I want a new range of fragrances. I do not want oud. I do not want gourmand. What can you do for me?" I said, "I can do a lot. That sounds great. I'm there." Well, it's a trend like any other. It's taken off. People love sweet things. Um, and it's there. I sort of accept. I don't like it, but um, I think it's still, everybody's saying it's going to be the biggest trend this year as well. And fine, okay, good.
Yeah, I agree with you on that because personally, I'm also not a very big fan of gourmand fragrances. And there's also this growing opinion online, a lot of social communities where people who are really enthusiastic about fragrances, who are collectors, they say this is the uninitiated person's version of perfumery. Like you buy a strong vanilla gourmand fragrance, it gets you attention, and you don't really have to be an enthusiast for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know how fair that is, but maybe it is, because I think people just are attracted to sweet gourmandy fragrances because it's easy to understand. It's easy to wear. It's easy to understand, but it's not one I like. It's not
Okay.
for me.
Yeah. Given that you have moved from so many like different markets, would you be able to put a finger on some really amazing creative brief or some really amazing project that you worked on that really made you think that, this is groundbreaking or this is something very new?
Um, from Zimmerman's days, from the first company, and then finding out about different fragrance attitudes from different cultures. And I think we're probably going to talk about and the different ways that fragrances um, are perceived and created for different cultures. And the first one, I think, was probably in Turkey and Syria. And actually, yeah, the first big eye opener was sitting in the souk in Damascus with a customer, sitting in the back of his little store, and these wonderful ladies, all covered, of course, and bringing out these enormous flasks and asking the guy to create the fragrance or reproduce the fragrance that they had. So everything was in his head. And I got to smell these fragrances as they were going. And that was the first sort of thing which went, wow, this is a different style of perfume. This is something, and I never forget it. But also in commercial perfumery at Givaudan, I worked on Colgate Palmolive. That was my biggest client. Well, first of all, it was Cousins in the UK, who I love,
Mhm.
and then Colgate Palmolive. And so we worked on different types of fragrances for different things. And at the time, there was a perfumer that came there called Khurshid Dastur, who was quite famous.
Mhm.
Um, and he created fragrances which I'd never smelt before because he used a very small number of materials, under 30 materials for one fragrance. And these were for bar soaps, these were for shampoos, and the style of his fragrances really knocked us sideways. So that was then. And then moving on with IFF, we created a Pantene fragrance. Two wonderful perfumers, a Chinese perfumer, Daniel Lee, and a
Mhm.
Japanese perfumer, Shojiku Masaka. And they created a fragrance that went into Pantene. And for me, that still absolutely stands out. That was for Asia, and that still stands out.
Mhm.
It just captured everything. It was a beautiful, fruity, floral, oriental, but when you washed your hair with it, wow, filled the bathroom and everything. So that was a great standout.
Is that a specific product we can still find, or is it not on the
No,
market?
I think the fragrance is still there somewhere
Mhm.
in the world, but it's I don't think it still exists in Asia, in China, which
Mhm.
is a great, loved it. Um, and the internal name was Fascinating Rhythm. And it suited the fragrance. It was wonderful. Um, and then from there, for Fragrance de Bois, I worked with a wonderful perfumer called Francois Mel Baudouin, and he created a fragrance for them using oud, but combining mint with oud. And it was astonishing. And it is still it is in my top three fragrances. I can't get it here. And I think if I was in Europe, I probably wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. But is it sells for about 400 euros a bottle. But it is still one of my, you can instantly remember it. An extraordinary fragrance. So, yeah. And then my other favorite fragrance is Eau Sauvage. I grew up with Eau Sauvage, and there's still nothing like it. And a fragrance called Bel Ami, which is a leathery type fragrance.
Is that from MS?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely love it.
Since you mentioned Asia a couple of times, and since you're in Latin America now, do you think that there are some aspects of the Asian or the Latin American consumer that a lot of big brands have maybe misunderstood, or is there some cultural difference?
Um, well, there's a lot of cultural differences, obviously, between Asia, Latin America, and then Europe, US. Um, I think that the first thing I learned when I moved to Asia with Jiv was that we are creating fragrances for cultures, not for geographies. And in Asia, there's Muslim culture, there's Chinese culture. They like different types of fragrances, but those cultures exist in the same country. Now, you have to try and please both consumers. Well, you can't necessarily all the time. And in China, for example, try to get the same fragrance in a shampoo or a bar soap that appeals to northern Chinese people and southern Chinese people, where the climates are different as well, is incredibly difficult. Is incredibly difficult. And again, in Pantene, one of the Pantene fragrances was this great perfumer, Daniel Lee, he created a melon fragrance, melon, and it just blew everybody away. It was incredible. It was the smell of, it was smell of McCarthy in the Philippines. It was the smell of Orchard Road in Singapore for months and months and months and months. But yeah, so it's cultures rather than geographies. In India, different, completely different, of course, because there's so many different languages and cultures. And I was very, very fortunate. We traveled around. I traveled around a lot. We did a huge exercise again for Pantene for Procter and Gamble, where we went all around the country interviewing consumers and learned a huge amount about the tastes, where they expected to smell the fragrances, which part of the wash process or the drying process did they really want the fragrance to perform. And it was different in different regions. So it's definitely, you create a culture. And I think every fragrance company knows that, definitely. And that's very different. Now, Latin America, I see lots of overlaps between here and Asia. The use of local ingredients, the use of local fruits. And then the biggest trend at the moment I see in fine fragrance in Latin America is Middle Eastern fragrances coming in. Now, a lot of them are, things like Arf, Latafa, all of this is there. It's in the market. Ajmal, who I love. I love it. And it's here in the market. And consumers are really liking this. Now, that's compared with a lot of a growing number of niche fragrance brands from Latin America too.
Of course, we basically talking about cultural differences, so that makes sense. Since you've already mentioned Latafa and Armaf, I mean, this is, I think, a big elephant in every room when you're talking about perfumes these days, and something that we have obviously had multiple interactions about on LinkedIn as well. So I'll just put it out there to, have a discussion. We know that clones and dupes are growing almost
Yeah.
9 to 10 times in search volume over the 5 years. And it's not just the Middle Eastern or Dubai-based clone brands, but also a lot of Zara alternatives or many different clothing brands as well. How much of a threat do you actually think this dupe culture is to the industry in terms of value and in terms of actual consumer perception?
Yeah, I've sort of changed my attitude a bit. I mean, to start off with dupes, or essentially they're just copycats or that's how it all started. They were just copycat fragrances. But I sort of changed my mind. My original stance was that dupes are bought by people who really didn't buy the original. They didn't spend $400 on a fragrance. They didn't know. They're just buying into the name. They don't
Mhm.
care if it smells exactly the same. Exactly. Okay, so then things changed a bit, and I was sort of hammered by some people I work with and others. Hang on. Yes, I buy the original, but I also buy the dupe to put in my sports bag to spray in the car. I want that smell, the fragrance, but I'm not going to buy $400 fragrance and just waste it.
Yeah.
So this is what I do. Oh, okay, all right, I understand that. I accept it. Um, they're evolving, and I think they will continue to evolve. As I said, I think a lot of the time I was at Beauty World last year. A lot of things. It was very difficult sometimes to even get on the Latafa stand. There was so many people on there, and it was huge. I think they had the biggest stand there.
Yeah.
Uh, do people understand that Latafa is dupes? Do people understand Armaf is a dupe or not? Or don't they care? I think a lot of dupe users don't care. A lot of perfumers tell me, "Oh, people need to be educated." I'm sorry, I
Mhm.
don't think and they don't want to be, and there's no need to be.
Yeah.
So I've changed my attitude in some ways that, I there is a dupe store in our town of 10,000 people, and it's new, and I go in there now and again, and I talk to the guy, and I smell fragrances, and I watch the people that are buying them. And it's quite fun because there were 3 girls that came in, obviously looking for a great night out somewhere, and they were buying the fragrances and, which one's gonna make me the sexiest? Which is the sexiest fragrance you have? So, and it's fun. How can you criticize people who want to have fun and, they haven't got much money to spend.
Yeah.
So, they're gonna spend $10 on a perfume, and, maybe they'll come back next week and buy a different one.
Yeah.
Um, so good luck to them. I don't have a problem with the users at all. I The only thing I have a problem with dupes is it's not so transparent with the
Mm-hmm.
people actually producing them. And the
Yeah.
people that are producing the dupes tend to be the ones that are also producing the real thing. And I mean the fragrance suppliers. Of
Yeah.
course they are. And I could name names and I'm not going to, but I know who's supplying the dupes and they're supplying the originals as well. That
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely definite. I know they are. That is the sort of hypocritical side. That is the cynical side of it. I think it will evolve. It is evolving because I think it was Lattafa now bringing in the big name perfumers to create
Yeah.
fragrance for them.
I think they recently got Quentin Bush to create
Yeah,
one of the fragrances. Yeah.
exactly. So it's evolving. So why did Duke start? Well, because of the extreme high prices of the originals and the distributors and the retailers that are making enormous margins. So
Yes.
what do you expect? You're going to get companies coming in say, well, we can do virtually the same thing for tenth of the price, and they are. Um, I think it will run its course at some point. I think it'll evolve, and I'm pretty neutral about it. My only gripe is that the fragrance houses could be a wee bit more transparent in what they're up to. But apart from that, good luck. I mean, if you've got girls and guys that have only got a small amount to spend on fragrance and they're buying this, they will never buy the original. These people, why should they when they can get this and they can possibly buy another one next week and layer it, or just just just
Yeah.
buy something else? Good luck to them. I have no problem with that.
But one argument for that online is also that this is just one portion of the consumer which will never buy the original. But
Right.
if you go to, let's say, an Instagram or a TikTok, every second video about dupes is basically some influencer saying, this is a designer killer. You don't need to buy the original. This does the job. So, isn't there, in your opinion, also a threat that this is kind of pulling away educated customers from the designer brands who are watching this and thinking, okay, I can save money?
Yeah, it can be, and these people can trade up.
Mhm.
Um, but in some ways, there's sort of three levels now of fragrance or fine fragrance. There's the ultra high end luxury niche, selling for 400 $400.
Yeah.
Some of them are worth it, some of them aren't, clearly. Um, there is the mastige. Then there is the fragrances. I tell the story of my daughter. She loves La Vie. I've forgotten. La Vie.
Yeah.
Uh, that went up from £100 to £200 in the UK. She said, "Wow, that level of fragrance. I think they have a real issue. I think that level of fragrance is going. I think that part of the industry has to reconsider what it's doing and how it's selling. They are the people who are going to dupes. And I really don't think that the people who trade up really want that. I think people who do trade up or people who are buying fragrances want something really different, want something that isn't me too mundane mediocre. I use that phrase a lot.
Mhm.
It was buzzed by Jean Amique, God rest him, who was the CEO of Rouen and a great perfumer. He instilled that upon us when we worked there. No me too mundane mediocre. And I find that middle ground of fragrance in the market, it is just full up with it. As people, so people want something very, very different,
Mhm.
be memorable, um, which is what Roger Dove said in Dubai. Be memorable. And I think this is okay. So the dupe user goes in. Yes, that smells like that. That smells like that. I will smell great, and I don't mind. But will they really spend €200 on something that smells just the same as something else and something else? I'd rather have my dupe. Thank you very much.
Yeah. The space that we're talking about, the designers, almost everything follows the same formula these days. It's the elixirs and the intents and the
Yeah,
exclusive, and like it's essentially ever since Your Savage elixir came out, I think that's where I started noticing it. Every single brand needs to have their own elixir, and it's basically just excessive vanilla, excessive sweetness. Do you think this is going to end at some point?
I think it's going to continue, sadly, and it's because there's complete lack of creativity with these companies. They
Mm,
they 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 can't bring out anything new. They just bring out variant after variant, flanker after flanker after flanker, because they have to, because they are forced to, because they did it, we must do it, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's also the prophecy now. It's also coming out with with Latafel, with Armaf, with all the others that are doing dupes. But I better do this in 3 months, otherwise they're going to forget about me. Um, I'll bring out the elixir. I'll bring out the super strong one, because I can't think of another fragrance to launch. You compare that with Chanel.
mm,
They are the the gods. They don't bring out all this stuff all the time. How
mm,
many new launches have they ever brought out? Not many. And look at their fragrance. They're sensational. They're almost, well, all of them actually are absolutely sensational fragrances. They don't bring out flanker after flanker after. They don't need to. But
mm,
I'm afraid a lot of them are doing it. I mean, if you look at all the big companies, they're all doing it, or they're acquiring the niche brands. They're acquiring because it is easier for them to acquire than it is to create. And I know I sound like a broken record on this one, but they do. And then they just milk them for all they're worth. You look
yeah.
at any brand, I challenge anybody to look at any brand that's been acquired. Have they gone on to new heights? Have they done anything new with it? No, nothing. Poor Frederick Mal. Since he left Estee Lauder or his brand, nothing's happened. Nothing at all. Zilch.
Yeah.
It's just, a pooch. Pooch. Yes, they've done a great job with Penhaligons, I think. It's too early to say with Le Labo. But sorry, I apologize. Byredo.
Right.
It's too early to say. I don't think they've got the capabilities to do what Ben Gorham did with Byredo.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got all this swamp of just the same old that's there.
Yeah. This was actually going to be one of the points that I had noted down to specifically talk about. And I kind of see that in obviously, I think the acquisitions will keep growing, but this is something that I heard from someone at Estee Lauder as well, that if you have been in the Estee Lauder offices for the past few years, you would know that the only thing they care about is Kilian, because that's the brand that's working and that's the brand they want to focus on. Like and I think that's kind of reminiscent of if this niche brand is working, acquire, and that's all we focus on.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good brand. But I need creativity. I just don't see it. It's not happening. I mean, Le Labo, um, I could never quite get the point of Le Labo anyway, but it started off as this smoke and mirrors brand that
Mhm.
was very good, and you sort of walked up to the counter, the lady put on the white coat and mixed it in front of you, and you did all that, and exactly what dupes are doing now. It did all that, and I've got this, and I'm paying this much for it. Uh, actually know the people, or one of the people that actually started it all, and it was very tongue in cheek, very smoke and mirrors, and they've
Mhm.
taken that and they've done a very good job in distributing it worldwide. Absolutely, no question about it. But I can't see how they're going to take that on. I really don't. I just can't see it. They just put it out there, milk it, and make money out of it. But I'm cynical, and that's their job. So there you go. They have bought. I just saw that they have, or not just saw, but they bought Forest Essentials in
Yes,
India.
yes,
I love that brand. I
yeah.
absolutely love the stores. Um, let's see what happens with those. I hope
Wow.
they've learned their lessons. They're going to let them carry on creating and doing what they do, which has been a great success.
Yeah. I mean, on Lelabo's point, I think a lot of, and this is just me giving you opinions online, is that Lelabo is one of those products that makes you as a consumer feel smart for using it. I think this is a very common opinion we have seen about the beauty space, where instead of using one lotion, you are using a 4 step or 5 step routine, and
Okay.
making it sound scientific kind of makes you feel that you are a smart consumer. And
Mm.
I think that's the opinion of Le Labo online and why it kind of works.
Yeah, probably. Probably. Yeah, it's different. It's definitely captured that part of the market that and it stood out, and I think
Hmm.
it still stands out. Yeah.
Do you think that that's a sentiment that existed about consumers wanting to sound smart maybe 2 decades ago, or has the priority of the consumer changed massively since you've been observing?
Yes, I think it has. I think consumers are far more savvy than they used to be. They've learned a lot more. Again, I think a lot of the credit comes down to somebody like Frederick Malle,
Hmm.
who was the first one to really elevate the perfumer. So then people wanted to know more about what was going on, what was happening within fragrance and skincare as well. And and then you've got somebody like Joe Malone, um, who came along and who introduced this as sort of layering as well. Whether it was down to her or not, I don't know, but she made it famous. So, and then through that, I think, yeah, people have become a lot more savvy in approaching fragrance and researching fragrance. A lot more people know about base notes and fragrantica than they ever did. And of course, then you got TikTok and Instagram and influencer influencers who I think are absolutely hilarious, and I keep watching them and keep laughing and thinking, please, can we put them up against the wall and can I pull the trigger? Um, I say that tongue in cheek. I didn't mean that. If that goes out to any, I think they're terrible. Um, but it is what it is again. You know, it's no good fighting all of this. This is it. Now, so consumers are looking at this, um, and they understand an awful lot more. They're investigating a lot more. So I think people have almost got too much information about it all now through influence, through TikTok, and there's this. They're inundated. Um, Now, yeah, others will say, no, this is fantastic because it introduces fragrance to a lot more people. And look at the way the fragrance industry is growing. It's incredible. So why do you criticize this when people are buying more fragrance and it's giving more people money and jobs and all the rest of it? Because I think that sometimes the wrong people are making a lot of the money. I think that the distributors are making way too much money. I don't know, retailers are going out of business in the States, so maybe that's the way. I don't think the fragrance houses are making incredible amounts of money. I really don't. You've only got to look at yes, they're growing slightly, but I don't think they're the ones that are making so much money these days. The ones who are not making the money that they should do are the growers, are the people producing the ingredients, are producing the raw materials, and they're the ones where the money should be going, and they're the ones that people should be looking at and saying, "Hey, I'm going to buy this because it's going to help them." Well, I don't know too many people in the industry that are trying to help the growers, and I'm sorry, but the fragrance houses, there was a big thing, and I think Christophe Lodemil really highlighted it as well, um, on how to help the jasmine growers, frankincense growers. Um, there's a group of people here in Colombia and Ecuador called the Bolsoneros, and they tap trees for tolu balsam, which is used, or Peru balsam, which is used in lots of different fragrances.
Yeah.
And these are poor farmers. They get permission or have to pay a little bit to go from farm to farm to tap these
Mhm.
trees. Well, I'm going to sound a bit self-righteous, but these are the ones that should be getting the money. And I work with a wonderful guy who's Somali American. He regularly is with all these farmers, and he works on a blockchain basis, so they can track the frankincense all the way through to the end product. And he makes sure that the right people are getting the right payment. Now, for me, the fragrance houses should be doing that a lot more. The likes of Estee Lauder, Puig, and L'Oreal, Dior should be doing that an awful lot more. They should be highlighting that.
Right.
So I think the industry is unbalanced in a lot of ways, but that's the way it is. I'm not a communist, but I do think there should be a bit more redistribution of the money in the industry.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
for me.
this is actually interestingly something I very recently discussed with one of my program directors, my program director at the university, who was telling me about this one project which he did with a few other people in some companies where they invested quite a bit of money in the living conditions and the working conditions for the farmers in Madagascar growing vanilla.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, yeah. And it's, I mean, it's an interesting point, especially from a consumer's perspective, because I see brands advertising a lot about recycled plastic bottles and glass bottles and refills, but this is not really something that brands actually say we are doing on the package. I mean, I don't know if they're doing it enough to even say it.
I don't think they're doing it enough. I'm all for refills. I'm really love the refill idea.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, strong believer in that. But yeah, it probably isn't done enough. It's not done enough, and the sustainability has improved an awful lot. I mean, there was
Mhm.
an awful greenwashing.
Yeah.
It was all when it all really came to the fore. There was a lot of fragrance houses rushing around and saying, "What have we got that we can call it sustainable? Oh, help, help!" It's true, but then it changed, and then people really started to look at it very, very seriously. So I think it is a lot better than it was. I
Mhm.
know it. And uh, yeah, I don't want to name names, but there are some very good companies out there now doing it at all levels of the industry.
Yeah.
Um, so it has got an awful lot better, but it needs to go a lot further. It has to go along further. And we have to support the people who are producing these raw materials much, much better.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. We talked a lot about IFF and Givaudan. What power do you think these companies have in the industry? Because it's just four or five of them controlling the entire. Like, can you tell us something more about the dynamics of how powerful these companies actually are?
Sure. I split the industry. I haven't done it for a while. I haven't updated it for a while. I used to do a regular report on the industry,
Yeah.
and I likened the fragrance industry. I'm a big football fan, so I liken the fragrance
Same.
industry to divisions. So the top six companies are the Champions League. So you have IFF, Firmenich, Givaudan, Simrise, Man, and Tagasaka. There's your top six. They're the Champions League. Barcelona,
Okay.
Real Madrid. Then you have like the Europa League. Then you have the next level down. So these companies are still extremely good companies. Robertet, Eurofragrance, CPL Aromas.
Mhm.
Um,
The
and
conference league.
and then you have the sort of the Conference League, which I guess is almost everybody else in the world.
Mhm.
Now, the original reports that I saw, I always read where there's, 20% of companies have got 80% of the business in the industry. I disagree. I think those top 6 companies have much less share than people actually realize. Of course, we'll come to the power bit in a minute. People, or generally people don't realize how many companies of in China. There must be 1,000 different fragrance companies in China. Same in India. I've
Yeah.
visited quite a few. Same in India and all over the world. Now, the top 6 companies do control an awful lot of the power of the industry. And, the biggest companies come to the biggest companies. Conversely, those big companies have to deal with the Procter and Gambles, the Unilevers, the Reckitt Benckises, the Estee Lauders, L'Oreal's, blah, blah, because they have to survive. They have to show how powerful they are.
Mhm.
And the likes of L'Oreal, P&G, etc., almost have to go to these companies because they have the extensive global reach. They have the power of the ingredients. Um, uh, they supply a lot of the ingredients in the world. IFF is one of the biggest producers of raw materials in the world. They I think the biggest supplier of aroma chemicals to P&G. And then you've got Firmenich, of course. Then and the others. So they're sort of locked together. Now, they're not, this is the way I describe it. Now, those 6 companies aren't happy with just dealing with the biggest these companies, because they have to work outside those 6 companies. So they attack all the others, that the likes of Robertet Eurofragrance, he became, and all the others also deal with. So these level of companies are sort of saying, well, go away. We don't want to do, we don't want you as competitors. So they have to show that they're different. They have to show that they've got something that those other companies that they deal with want. And they could be anybody. They can be still fine fragrance companies, contract manufacturers who are huge. Also big CPGs that are huge. But the big boys want a cut of that business. Conversely, those companies also attack the big guys as well, also attack Unilever, Procter, Benckiser, Reckitt, etc., Henkel, and then the fine fragrance companies. And the big guys don't like that at all. What are you doing letting them onto a call list? No. You're supposed to be dealing with them, not them. And then you've got all the others who are still, some of them are very good international companies who deal internationally, or they deal exclusively locally, or they have a bit of both, or they work, some of them collaborate. But these big guys are the power. Yes, there is they do control a lot of the industry. They can dictate what happens. No, you're not buying that material. And I'm selling that to my biggest CPG clients. This fragrance house cannot buy that. And, there's all the cartel talk around that, allegedly. So yeah, the power is there, but it is there because if they're not on every call list, then there's something wrong. They're doing something wrong. And they're all battling to be. Now, I don't know if they're all on certain call lists, all the big ones, but mostly those top 6 are on every single call list, with a few exceptions, because they have to be. They absolutely have to be. They have to be creating the biggest fine fragrances, because that helps them with other things as well. But that's not the biggest business. They have to be selling the biggest fabric softener to Unilever, or the biggest bar soap fragrance to Unilever or Colgate or whatever, to survive. They have to support the big brand teams, the big teams that work on these products. So yeah, they do hold that.
Is there actually a David versus Goliath moment here, where maybe the conference league companies that you mentioned, is there something any of them are trying to do differently that can be a threat to the big six?
Yes, absolutely. And they can do it. They're dynamic. They can do it because they have much more local approach.
Hmm.
They can do it quicker than the big guys, potentially. They have access to local raw materials, which the big guys either can't get or don't want because they have to source on a global basis. I'm doing some work with a wonderful Turkish company called Parkim. They are producing their own absolutes, and they're doing it in a way which is attracting enormous attention in the industry. And I don't see any of the big guys doing something similar. Now, okay, then I've got LMR, who are wonderful. They're the ingredient company they bought. But you have got companies like that. CPL Aromas in the UK, they're doing things differently that
Mm.
is attractive to lots and lots of different people. Keva in India are doing things differently, which is very different to different people. So there is an attractiveness, yes, to maybe deal with the so-called smaller companies, or and a lot of them are family owned,
Mhm.
that the big guys can't do. They can be more dynamic because they have to be. They can be more creative because they have to be to get business in different areas. So yes, and there will always be a place for these guys everywhere. And this is, for me, this is the real business. This is a maybe about 50% of the whole fragrance business with these guys. Definitely.
And do you think maybe now that we have AI, that dynamic is about to change in some different way?
In different ways. Yeah. Uh, I really don't believe it's going to replace perfumers. I don't see it. There's a company called Osmo that are using AI, um, and they've got two wonderful people there that I know, perfumers. One's Christophe Lodemille, and the other is oh gosh, the name's gone. XP&G head perfumer, and they are creating new molecules for perfumery, and they're going to produce these new molecules for perfumery. So this is going to change this, and perhaps they will be able to produce them a lot cheaper than you and more consistently than has been. And
Mm.
that, I think, for me, could be the way it's changed. I mean, I can see an awful lot of stuff going on that people call AI. It's not, it's just a better use of algorithms.
Sure.
Um, will it replace perfumers? I don't think it can. I think it can be extremely helpful. Yes, definitely. And it can help perfumers on their way. Um, but I don't think AI, it probably can help in production a lot. And I see things happening there with the improved production. Um, will it ever help the creativity? No, I don't see it. I don't, it scares me. I've worked with it. Scares the living, scares the living, scares the living.
Maybe if you let AI create perfumes, it's going to create more elixirs and the same thing again and again.
People have done it. I mean, it has done it, and yeah, it's definitely possible, and it's definitely going to happen for absolute certain. Um, I don't know. I don't know what. I mean, we're probably there already. Somebody's going to put two perfumes in front of me and say, "What do you think?" And I'm going to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, they're exactly the same." Or, "I love this one." Well, that was created by AI. Oh, was it? And so be it. If it is, then okay. But I really hope it doesn't replace a perfumer, because the perfumer's brain, every perfume is different, and they think differently, and they think the ingredients differently, and the accords and the combinations and everything. So I really hope it doesn't replace it, perfumers. Maybe it can help a lot in industrial perfumery, creating fragrances for low pH fragrances. maybe, like that. Um, there's not many perfumers that like doing that anyways.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yes.
um, sort of, so I'm 50/50 on AI.
Uh, And I want to come to talk about your company, Perfumistics. Maybe walk us through what was the motivation behind it after working in the industry for so many years. What was the gap you were trying to fill when you thought of starting your own?
No, the sort of the gap that I'm filling came later, or really only came in the last few years.
Mhm.
Um, I stumbled into it after I left IFF. I sort of was trying to think, well, what shall I do? How shall I do it? And I got a great friend also in the industry who said, well, you got to specialize. You really got to get into one specific area.
Mhm.
Um, I said, all right, well, okay, let me see how it goes. And then I was playing golf with a friend, and he suddenly started to talk about oud, and his English guy. Uh, I said, how do you know about oud? Come on. Well, we do. He said, well, my company grows argo wood. Oh, you better talk to my boss. So, okay. And that was the start of Fragrance de Bois. So
Mhm.
I stumbled into that. I stumbled into other aspects. I got introduced to became a great friend, and we toured China, and we worked for another guy who was a financial guy. Who was financing us. Please create. I need a brand that's created for China, which we did. I need a fine fragrance, which could be this, that, and the other, created for China or elsewhere. I'm looking at to buy a company, fragrance house in China, a Chinese fragrance company. Can you do that for me? Gosh, yeah, I don't think I've ever done all of this before, but yeah. And it sort of, so it was nothing that was planned. And this is where I tell the sort of story that the first question I was asked was about packaging. And I said, well, I thought, I don't know much about packaging, but it, and the first question, well, no, I don't know that, which
Yeah.
was the wrong answer because without BSing, it wasn't that I didn't know, but I knew somebody who did. And this was the thing. You absorb so much information, you absorb so many contacts. So I just rang up a friend from Colgate and I said, hey, somebody's asked me about this. Oh, yeah, well, you just do that or you go there. Oh, I'll put you in touch. Oh, thank you very much. So it's not that I knew or didn't know, but I know somebody who did. And that was the thing I learned straight away. Um, and that's led on to this sort of gap. So we did all this, we did all that. We visited rose growers in the north of China. We found a company for him to buy. Um, so all of this gradually came together. But what the thing was that I started to learn, especially after going to lots of exhibitions in cosmetics, uh, Cosmoprof, uh, is that people start off their own businesses. They start off and they gravitate straight away to the power, the Givaudan's, the IFFs, and Firmenich,
Yeah.
Simrise. That's where they go straight away because, well, because they're the biggest. And they, two companies told me at Cosmoprof early days. I said, "Can I ask you where you got your fragrances from? They're very good." He said, "Yeah, yeah, they're Givaudan." "Oh, okay, okay." Or somebody else, "Well, yeah, how did you?" "Well, we met them at Beauty World. We went there, we talked to people, and they supplied us fragrances in no time at all." "Oh, okay." And I said, "So you're really happy with?" "Yeah, we're happy." "No, you're not. So tell me more." Well, because we had to meet minimum order requirements. We have to do this. We have to do that. The prices are going up. If we don't do that, they're going to drop us. Okay, because that's the way they are. That's changed a lot. But the initial thing was, do you know what? I don't. I can find somebody for you that will understand what you're trying to do and is better aligned to your business. And very fortunately, I know a lot of people in the industry. We all move around a lot. That helps. It's very
Yes.
incestuous.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a lot of extremely good companies of all levels in the industry. So I said, well, wouldn't you like to work with somebody that's a little bit closer to you in terms of geography? Oh, yeah. Well, how about this company? Oh, we don't know them. All right, I'll introduce you. And okay, so I make a little bit of money along the way because just out of introduction fees but my mantra is to I help the process. I don't just say, here we go. No, I make sure they fit. And this was a gap I found as I went along. This gap existed that companies really didn't know where to go, or they'd been somewhere, but they weren't entirely happy. Yes, they were happy. Yes, of course, they were getting good fragrances, but they wanted more. They
Yeah.
wanted a partner, not a supplier. And this is the thing, and this is what I've found has been one of the main surprises that I've found. So um, the connection side of it, the matchmaking side of it. There's a lot of
And
happy customers out there, I'm pleased to say.
no, 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 that's really interesting. I think there's a whole business lesson there.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
found it by accident, really.
No, interesting. I have two more sections that we can just quickly go through.
Okay.
I check, Simon, do you know what a hot take is in today's Gen Z language?
I confess, no, I don't. There you
So
go.
it's basically a controversial opinion that you think is a controversial opinion that you say out loud to just spark a conversation.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what I've done is that I've gone online, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, and I've collected some hot takes from different users from different communities that maybe we just quickly react to. If I could get your reaction to those, what you think about it. So the first one I have is it says the perfumer who actually created your favorite perfume is undercredited and should be known much more. The name of the perfumer should be put on each perfume and it isn't talked about enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it should be put on fabric softeners. I think the perfumer I think I think the people that create fragrances for household products
Yeah,
should have the same kudos, should have the same recognition as those who create the fine fragrances, the 400 buck bottles. I think their names should go on um, a floor cleaner. I think they should go on the shampoo. I would love to have seen the two wonderful perfumers from IFF, their names on the Pantene bottle because they deserve it. Absolutely.
of course.
Mm.
The next one is perfume TikTok has done more for perfume literacy in 3 years than the whole industry has managed to do in 3 decades.
Yeah, they've inundated everybody with rubbish. they've okay, they've grown the industry for sure, but yeah, but you know they're getting huge amounts of money for doing it. I mean, they're not real experts; they're
Mhm,
just so-called influencers. They're you know okay, it exposes people to fragrances that they wouldn't know generally, but it accelerates the amount of launches that are rubbish. And there really are some rubbish fragrances out there at
mhm.
the moment, and that's accelerated it. So I would like to see Perfume Talk disappear. There you go. That's my that's
Uh,
a hot take.
yeah, that's a hot take for a hot take. The next one I have is the best thing that happened for perfume marketing is the death of celebrity fragrances.
Yes, I agree. I won't say who it was. I had a conversation with a celebrity. I
No,
convinced him not to launch a fragrance, which my company was absolutely horrified. I convinced him. I only met him by accident, and I love him to death. But
can we get a
and what?
hint so we can maybe guess who it is if you
No,
can't?
I'd be in trouble. Um, no, I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. But yeah. Well, it's either a combination of ego.
Mhm.
Actually, there are one or two. There is one. I will single out a celebrity fragrance range, which I believe has been successful, only a small way. Now, if you look at no, celebrity fragrances only last as long as the celebrity um, is famous. Now, some
Okay.
celebrities will last for absolutely ever, but no, no, I'm sorry, I don't agree that a celebrity should carry a fragrance. If it's it can be. I mean, bless her, Ariana Grande is a lovely lady. And if I say anything bad about her music, my daughter will kill me. The fragrances are nice. They're all sweet and juicy and all that sort of stuff. But,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're going to find them in the bottom of a TJ Maxx barrel in no time soon. I don't think. I'm very happy that I'm very happy that celebrity fragrances are dead. Well,
Interesting.
seem to. The one I like, but she really didn't put it under her own name that much, was Michelle Pfeiffer's range, Henry Rose.
Okay.
And I absolutely loved it. And I
Mhm.
think the fragrances are great. And she drove that range and with help somebody else I'm working with. And that was IFF fragrances mostly, I think. And no, that for me, they stood out, but it wasn't really her name on the bottles. That was
Mhm.
a her her daughter or son's names, I think it was. But apart from that, no, not Taylor Swift. I don't want to see that. Thank you very much. No,
That's a controversial opinion. I think saying anything about Taylor Swift is really risky.
no, no. But there you go. No, no. I'm very happy. I don't want to see any celebrity fragrances. Thank you.
Interesting. Also, interestingly, I think I had about 15 hot takes, but apart from these three, we've already talked about all of them. I'm proud of
Okay.
you.
All
uh,
right.
yeah, so I think we can just move to the last section, which is predictions and recommendations. So, I mean, given your experience and your observations, I would, I think it would be really valuable for us to listen to three, two or three predictions that you think are in order for the industry in the next 3 to 5 years.
Gosh, predictions. Uh, what I want and what I predict probably are completely two different things.
Mhm.
I predict more and more acquisitions.
Okay.
Um, but I also predict a change in companies, or there's fine fragrance companies that are acquiring brands. I do think that they probably learn their lessons in some degree
Mhm.
and won't just go out and milk it for all it's worth and then, oh dear, what do we do now? But I do see an awful lot more prediction and a lot more acquisitions in the market. It's
Mhm.
inevitable. It has to happen. But I really hope, I really pray that the heritage of those brands are respected and they're built on, and et cetera, et cetera. What else do I predict? Um, yeah, new notes in fragrance.
Mhm.
Please, not more gourmand. But new. Um, and I really, yeah, I'm going on to what I hope, not what I predict. I predict many more launches. I think there's going to come to. I think the bubble will burst. I predict the bubble will burst. There you go.
Yep.
Maybe in 2 or 3 years. I think potentially there could be a big something. I ideally hope it's not something like COVID again. But um, I predict that. I predict fragrance. I predict acquisitions in fragrance houses as well. Um, I think it won't be so much FOMO, fear of missing out, as it has been. I think there'll be much more selective. So the big boys will be buying more ingredient companies, more biotech companies to develop. I predict other companies getting into the fragrance industry that perhaps they weren't in, and see the margins and see the potential growth. So it'll be companies, maybe there'll be flavor companies, maybe there'll be biotech companies, buying fragrance houses for geographical reach and what have you.
Hmm.
I do predict that absolutely is going to happen. I have no doubt,
Great.
definitely.
Yeah.
I work in M&A and I see that all the time as well. What else? Um, what do I predict about consumers? Consumers being led one way or another. I
Hmm.
predict social media and something else is going to happen, something else big, because it has to, because we didn't have the strength of social media 10 years ago. It's just
Hmm.
skyrocketed. So there will definitely be something else happening that will influence consumers into fragrance. Let's hope it takes them into fragrance and makes fragrance houses and companies produce things that are memorable. And hopefully, social media understands it as well.
Amen.
So I predict a big change and big advances in social media.
Okay. Those are some really interesting predictions. And maybe just to maybe just towards the end, if we can get your recommendations, your favorites, maybe three, four, five, as many as you'd like to recommend, all time
For,
favorites. Yeah.
in terms of fragrances,
Yeah.
okay. Well, definitely Eau Sauvage. It's one of my go-tos. It's just the most wonderful fragrance, and it's just there. You can wear it any time of day. I love Bel Ami. I absolutely have always loved Bel Ami from Hermes. I love Abbot Rouge, but Guerlain, yes.
Yeah.
Um, and it's quite funny because these are older fragrances. I love London Oud by Fragrance de Bois. I
Okay.
absolutely kill for it. I like Amber Wood by Ajmal. That is also one of my great loves, and I can buy it here. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So there's sort of very different styles of
Hmm.
fragrance. I love Armani cologne a lot. Um, so those probably are my standouts um, that I love. Oh, one very new one. Um, Maison de Lazy is a niche fragrance house from Singapore. Elizabeth Flower, lovely lady, and her husband. And Antoine Lee created a fragrance for them called Guns of Sakura.
Okay.
And it is a lot of rose oxide in there. It is outstanding. It is absolutely. She very kindly gave me a bottle my wife uses. Absolutely outstanding fragrance. It is, you listen, be memorable. Wow, that is really memorable.
Mm.
And I wear it. It's wonderful. It's not over. I don't think it's overtly feminine. And I wear it, and people have said, "Wow, what are you wearing? That's fantastic." So there you go. Those are the. So you got a scan of about 50 years there, definitely.
Lovely. I think maybe I can use that one and blow it up on TikTok. Maybe I can be the first one to blow it up on TikTok.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. But yeah, those were all the questions I had for you, Simon. Thank you so much for sharing
Pleasure.
with us so much of like a plethora of knowledge, something that a lot of things that I had never really heard of and never really thought about, and I'm sure a lot of the people listening would have also not thought about it. And they've obviously got a lot to think about and a lot of new stuff that they've learned. So thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure.
Yeah.
And very, very best of luck with everything, with your
Yeah.
MBA.
Thank, thank
And
you.
very best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.